Alicia, thank you for being with us. The St. Louis Press Club's effort entitled Hour in the Now. And Hour in the Now is pretty exciting lately, I'm sure you would say. Would you introduce yourself formally, please, and give your title and what you do?
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Alicia Elsner. I'm the president and general manager at KSDK 5 on Your Side. I have spent the last 23 years at the television station, it's almost 23 years this September. Started out as an account executive, then was promoted to business development specialist, then to a local sales manager overseeing a team of about 10, to being the director of sales, overseeing a team of about 30, to over the last 4 years having the opportunity and privilege to serve as the general manager overseeing the building and station of about 150 employees.
Extraordinary. What a great background, especially now during COVID. My gosh, you're an advertising-based business. Mm-hmm. And talk to us about that battered feeling suddenly when you're faced with this pandemic, this crisis.
Yeah, it was being comfortable in the ambiguity of not knowing, let alone what was happening in our own facility. But also in the minds of our customers who were trying to figure out, am I going to keep my doors open? Are the lights going to be on in 30 days? What are going to be the needs of consumers, and how do we safely, keep the business moving forward? So we had to learn quickly to be comfortable with uncertainty. And we have an excellent sales manager team who communicates exceptionally well. And what we tried to do as a sales organization was to control what we could control. Mm-hmm. So the core advertising certainly was not something we could control, but developing localized campaigns for our local customers was something we could control, and to make sure that we were the voice of reason and calm, and certainly not inciting any sort of pandemonium or fear. And that same approach was carried out on the content side as well.
That fear factor can get in the way of doing good business, I'm sure. What I want to talk about that in terms of the posture. You talked about the content. Let's talk about that fear factor and how to preclude fear for facts and good information.
Yes, so TEGNA is a large organization that we happen to be one of the local affiliates, and TEGNA is in 62, we have 62 stations in 51 markets. And one thing out of the gate that they resurrected was a franchise called Facts, Not Fear. And that is something that was very comfortable for us, because we are a very true, authentic, trustworthy legacy entity within the marketplace. And if you look at the names, Mike Bush, Ann Allred, Allie Corey, Rennie Knott, Kay Quinn, Art Holiday, Casey Nolan, Morgan Young, our main talent, they have a sense of calm and reasonableness. And you look at a Mike or an Ann on any given night, and when we all were very uncertain as to what was going to happen in our own local market with COVID, they did have a sense of calm. Mm-hmm. And so the franchise of Facts Not Fear was something that we could really all rally behind, which was to dispel misinformation that is unfortunately part of the world that we live in, online and through social media. And so we have the Facts Not Fear umbrella, and then Ann Allred has done a tremendous job of verifying facts. So we kind of see her as a fact checker. So you may have seen this comment, on social media. She disputes it, dispels it, or she says, I've talked to these 3 sources and I can confirm it's true. So she confirms true and false statements.
Mm-hmm. Is that user-generated content integrated with that, essentially?
Yes, it absolutely is. And we, through the modern technology that we live in, I don't know how we could have continued our operation with the few people we had in there. But one of the technology pieces that had really come to play with COVID was a technology that allowed people to text a local number, 444-5125, with either their question, which then Mike Bush would take to Dr. Newland and say, hey, this is what we're hearing. Could you answer this particular question about mask use or symptoms or whatever the case was? We also use this same technology as it related to stimulus checks and the questions around the CARES Act and PPP. This was a great way for us to connect with our consumer and also, again, be that like trustworthy source that could help them navigate these very uncertain times. I hate that phrase, uncertain times, but
I know.
overused.
Overused.
User-generated content has been, I think, really important for us to have that local connection with our consumer.
Mm-hmm. Getting back to verifying, so that's a corporate commitment to investigations as such. And so Anne oversees part of that Verify team at the station?
Yeah, so there are a lot of individuals who are part of the Verify team. We have a corporate team, and you've seen probably Jason Puckett. He is an individual who's actually based in Charlotte, and he's part of the national Verify team. But the Verify component was something that the 10 o'clock team, really led by Mike and Ann, felt very committed to making sure there was a presence within their shows because they felt like that was the right fit for their, not only their personality, but what the audience was looking for. So Anne, given that she was working remotely from home, she said, this is something that I believe in and I can contribute and I can own. And she's really done a remarkable job with it.
It's a signature, essentially.
It is. It is.
So now comes the George Floyd killing, and everybody has seen it. And how has, I guess maybe it's reasonable to ask, does a station acknowledge systemic racism? Does it take a stand in that regard with regard to moving forward and how you're going to do your business?
Yes, we did take a stand. So what we've been trying to do to try to keep our fragmented workforce in touch with one another is Zoom calls, just like the one we're on right now, and town halls. Mm-hmm. And we had a couple of serious Zoom calls where I interacted with not only our Black employees, but also in a town hall setting, acknowledging that we will not stand for systemic racism. We are, there's clearly a problem within our market. There's clearly a division in our market. And we have problems in our own building. If you look at our employee population, our numbers, our percentage of diversity might reflect that of the overall kind of diversity figures in the market, but we do not have a population that is 18% Black. And that is something that's a problem. And furthermore, we have no managers of color. Mm-hmm. And so I was the first to say, this is a problem and admit that we have a problem. And I've been trying to engage stakeholders that I have relationships with, as well as the employees, and talking with them on a consistent basis about how we can better represent the community that we have the privilege to serve. But it all comes down to walking the walk and talking the talk. And right now, we don't have the right makeup within our building.
Well, I give you credit for acknowledging that. I guess it is about mirroring the community, essentially, with your coverage. In the old days, they used to have the ascertainment, the need to meet with community. How do you do it by Zoom? Do you have other means, or are you communicating a lot with community leaders?
It's been more one-on-one, to be honest. So what I did first was had a conversation that was hard. It was about a 2-hour conversation with a handful of our Black employees. And I asked just really 3 specific questions. One was more solutions-based. One is, how do you feel? Like, what's your personal kind of feeling right now? And what could we as a station do better? So those were the 3 things that we addressed. From that 2-hour call, it kind of fractured into recruitment, development, and furthering relationships. So in the last several weeks, we have made some inroads in speaking with stakeholders at Crossroads to help us develop a diversity training plan. We have I personally have met with the dean of the School of Journalism at Mizzou, as well as the former, director, I think was his title, at SIU Carbondale, to try to form better rapport with those particular 2 colleges to have a better recruitment plan and strategy so we can bring on diverse employees who want to be in St. Louis. And that's a big key.
Excellent.
We have, as a large company, we have a lot of relationships, particularly with NABJ, and we recruit heavily at NABJ.
National Association of Broadcast Journalists.
Black journalists.
Black journalists, yes.
Yes. And we were actually we were supposed to sponsor in the middle of March, before all heck broke loose, the regional event that was led by Carol Daniel and Sharon Stevens. But unfortunately, that had to be postponed. But as a company, we do have great rapport with NABJ, but we need to try to find, in my opinion, people who want to make their home and lay down their roots or return home to St. Louis. So we can keep these reporters of any skin color here committed to St. Louis and telling the stories of St. Louis.
Yeah.
So the relationships, to answer your original question, the relationships have really been fostered in more of a one-to-one. I happen to serve on the Urban League board. And so I really did lean heavily on my resources at the Urban League, not only to develop, again, more of a training curriculum for our employees, but also to ask, what are we doing wrong as a media entity? What could we be doing better? How can we better serve the constituencies that the Urban League in particular, as an example, serve? So we did get very fair feedback, good feedback, some critical feedback on what we could be doing better. And what I kind of would say is the crux of the problem is that, we need, again, those better relationships. We need to be present in certain communities. And we can't just swoop in when bad news happens. We have to show that we're committed to the entire market, not just the Central Corridor, not just Edwardsville, not just Jefferson County, not just St. Charles County, the whole DMA.
Commendable. I'm glad to hear what it is you're doing, and I'm sure the audience will be very happy to hear of your efforts. There's an active, as you know, the Black journalists here in the St. Louis area, very active community. So we're lucky to have that group as an information base to help, certainly. Let's talk about the safety factor that has been a consideration here. Certainly, you had safety concerns when the crisis hit, and then the overlay, certainly, of the civil unrest. Can you speak to those, please?
Sure. So to start with COVID, we had great intel from a higher level at the corporate level and daily phone calls when the COVID-19 outbreak ensued and really became something that was really snowballing. We happen to have an NBC affiliate, very strong NBC affiliate in Seattle, Washington, which was the start, if you recall, of COVID. And so we learned best practices from that particular market. Those best practices were shared, and the leadership team on the COVID-19 task force at the leadership corporate level held us all accountable to making sure that we kept our employees safe. We did whatever we could to keep the building safe. And third, keeping the community informed. So we had to do all those three things. So you probably saw that we were probably, I think, the first station. I think NBC actually did a story on Ann Allred about how Anne, given her health background, it was important to her and to us to get her to work remotely from home, and what that took in order to get a home studio up and running. And you know what? It was miraculous. It just happened. And she was leaning in and she said, I'll do anything I can to make this happen. And technology provided us to have that as kind of the model. And then we took that to many different anchors, and we learned how to line produce from home. We learned how to edit from home. And we initially, we had maybe 15 employees who were allowed to go inside the building. We now are up to maybe 20, 25 out of 150. That's a lot of people that are working remotely from like my basement, or, dining room table, or, bedroom desk. So that was the first kind of wave. And we all kind of laugh about it now. Had we thought that, remote working was something that we wanted to take on, we would have hired a consultant. It would have taken 3 years, and we would have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to figure out as a company how to do it. When it really all came down to it, we had to do it. We made it happen, and it's really working favorably.
The sensibilities of television people, that seems to be their way. They would have made anything happen if it had to.
And it did. And they did. And, some of our employees are thriving at home. Some of them have never felt like they're more efficient and effective than they are at home. And they appreciate, like me, not having to drive 30 minutes each way, pay for parking, to get dressed up, to the nines and wear high heels and get your hair done. Like, it's a lot easier to work from home in some cases for some people. There are other people who are struggling. They're struggling with the isolation. They're extroverted individuals, and they miss the rapport with their colleagues. And it does put strains on communication. So you have to be overtly focused on making sure that you don't assume people know what's going on. You have to send emails, have town halls, have phone calls, write notes, send gifts, anything you can think of to try to keep that connection going.
So you perfect segue for me. I was going to ask you about high-speed bandwidth in all this. Did you have to make extra means to acquire or to keep or to add to your bandwidth with all this?
At the corporate level, there was such a thing. To what extent, I'm not quite sure. And then from, our MSJs, our reporters and our photographers, they already were pretty well on their way of, relying on hotspots, trying to find Wi-Fi. In some cases, some of our employees had to boost their Wi-Fi. They had to call Charter Spectrum. Hey, can you give me more power, more speed in some cases? But those problems really kind of resolved pretty quickly.
Wow. Yeah.
Again, I give a lot of credit to corporate for making sure that we were really well prepared.
So that corporate relationship, you've got a dynamic crew there. There seems to be a code of how you operate, something you stand for. Do you want to speak to that, please, and how it filters down?
Yeah, it's the mission to serve the greater good of our communities. And it's a privilege and honor that we don't take lightly. And I think that's something that you would see in any one of the Tegna markets. Lynn Beal, who once ran the television station, is now the chief operating officer at the corporate level. So all the things that Lynn stood for in making KSDK what it is today is, on a larger scale now. And she has set forth, that code, you call it a code of conduct, we call it a mission. It's our mission to serve the greater good of our community. And we have a really large megaphone still. And so it's our responsibility to, again, make sure that our community is safe, informed, and thriving, if at all possible, given the circumstances right now.
So in terms of programming, so you're an NBC station. Mm-hmm. What was the relationship with NBC during all this?
It maintains a very strong relationship. Again, I had mentioned we found it really interesting that they were doing a story on Ann Allred and how she decided, to start remote anchoring from home. We provide content to them, they provide content to us. There are interviews that we'd like to have, but NBC has at first, and we have to succumb to having it second. But it's a really, it's a good rapport. We're a very proud NBC affiliate. We're one of the strongest NBC affiliates in the country. We were devastated about, the loss of the Olympics this year, or the delay of the Olympics until 2021. It'll be here next year, a year from today, actually, July 23rd of 2021. So, we are very proud as a Peacock NBC affiliate, and had lots of plans already underway when COVID hit that we just had to kind of pivot. Yes. And talk with our customers and try to explain, the Olympics are going to be here in another year, and we'll just have to, set that aside. But I'd say my boss, Larry D'Elia, who is the Senior Vice President at Tegna, he's actually serves on the NBC affiliate board. So we take that relationship really seriously.
Sounds like you have that dance just right, where you dance well with each other. And in times like this, do you believe the audience, besides the news? Certainly the news is your chief product. Am I correct when I say that? The
Yes.
News really. So, but you're on 24 hours a day. You have to provide some programming. Can you explain if your programming shifted a little bit? Did you pivot to, the community sentiments of these last few months?
Yeah, so out of the gate, knowing that we had to have some schedule changes, and again, having fewer people inside our building, we had to make some difficult decisions. So initially out of the gate, we turned over the 4 a.m. hour back to NBC and provided national news coverage from 4 to 5 a.m. instead of local programming. And then we went back on after the Today Show 1 and 2 at 10 a.m. We had a local newscast. So we just moved those employees to providing a midday or mid-morning update. And that proved to be really effective. And then Show Me St. Louis was replaced, by this 10 a.m. show. Because at the time, if you think back to mid-March, April, their schedules were changing. So they were waking up a little bit later. We saw that most people were waking up between like 6 and 8 a.m. as opposed to, 5 and 7 a.m. And there was an appetite for that 10 a.m. newscast. And so that seemed to be a really great fit. Otherwise, everything else pretty much stayed intact. I'd say that we saw a big boost in ratings with the nightly news. We continue to see that boost with Lester Holt. Again, he like Mike Bush, not like Aunt Allred. He is cool as a cucumber. He doesn't incite panic or fear. And I think he's a very relatable individual. So I think that's, part of the reason why that half hour is thriving.
And I love to see him in the film, The Fugitive. Anyway, yes, he is cool as a cucumber. He's a good face for these times, especially.
Absolutely.
But so how are you feeling, Alicia, about moving forward? The elections are coming. What does that mean for you as GM and president of the station?
Our viewers need us more than ever, is really the way that we feel. So last night we did collaborate with the 9 Network and St. Louis Public Radio, and we put forth an hour-long debate for the St. Louis Democratic County Executive race ahead of the August primary. I think some people would say, is that really that big of a deal? The ratings would suggest, the streaming numbers would suggest that there was an appetite for this news and for this context, seeing all of those Democratic candidates on one stage together. Mm-hmm. As we move forward into the general election window, again, I think the audience and the community is going to need us more than ever, because there is so much misinformation out there that we have to be that legacy voice that provides transparency, trustworthiness, and holds people accountable to the comments that are made or said, verifying whether it's true or not true. And again, that sense of calm that really our people, I don't know how Mike Bush does it. I don't know. It's just innate It's a talent that he has, that even in the craziest of moments, you see him on TV and you have a sense of calm. And I really just feel as we go into the general election window and the COVID numbers going up, we're more and more important, but not just on linear television, but also on our website and our app, of course.
And also for the St. Louis Press Club, he has been our MC on several occasions, and he does such a wonderful job. It's just a pleasure and an honor to have him there. But thank you for releasing him.
Of course, of course.
Anything that you would like to say about these last 6 months that perhaps I didn't broach? Certain feelings you have? How are you doing? You're doing okay?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, I think, we're a pretty resilient group. We have great leadership. We have a tremendous content director who is also very calm, and she's experienced, and she's a guiding light for the newsroom. And we're very proud of having Carol Fowler from Chicago here in St. Louis. She's coming on her 1-year anniversary. And we hired a director of sales a year ago. Tomorrow is his 1-year anniversary, Jimmy Garilli. He's been tremendous. We have a great marketing lead in Nicole Marchiotti, and just the leadership team, we have each other's backs. And I think that enables us to communicate well and to be seen as a united front. So I think it's worked well. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. Could we do better? Absolutely, we could do better, but we're doing the best that we possibly can without a guidebook of knowing how to deal with some of the things that have been thrown our way. But we're really blessed to have a company who puts their people first. And I think that's the one thing that I really want to underscore. A day doesn't go by when one of our employees who I'm interacting with on a phone call or on a Zoom just, doesn't say, hey, thanks for looking out for us. Thanks for making sure that, we're safe. We're very stringent, and I have to say no, probably more so than yes, when questions come up about having access to an interview or access to our facility. So I'm not always the most popular person in the building on that front, but it's all with the promise of keeping our people safe.
I have to hand it to you. Congratulations on this communication that you provide for your audiences, but internally as well. And I think audiences pick up on that. I think they really do. And I wish you a good near future and a distant future doing the great things that a legacy station is supposed to do.
Thank you. It is a privilege to do so. And thank you for reaching out and asking how things are going at our station. We really do appreciate that and the support that you and your organization have provided us. So thank you.
Thank you from the St. Louis Press Club. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too. Take care.